this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today, John Greschner calling.
Valley Correctional Facility. This call is not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored. If you believe this should be a private call, please hang up and follow facility instructions to register this number as a private number. To accept this free call, press 1. To refuse this free thank you for using. You may start the conversation now.
What's up, Bill?
Hey, how you doing, John?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Hey, it's great to meet you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about you going to prison and what kept you in prison for this long.
You want my history?
Yeah, we can get your history, and I would like to know about when John Gotti was assaulted in prison, and when you heard about that, what was your thoughts when that happened, and if you could tell me about Nicky Scarfo when you ran into him.
Okay, Nicky was a good friend of mine. I knew John too, but Nicky was a buddy of mine. Well, here's the thing. I came to prison and I got arrested in October 1968 when I was 17. I grew up in the streets and, got my first case when I was 7, robbing trains with older homeboys there, throwing us up in the boxcars and all this and that. Started my first street gang when I was 7. Got my first night fight with a black kid on University Avenue when I was 7. So I grew up in the streets, right? So it's kind of a foregone conclusion I'm going to end up in prison because I grew up in the streets. So I got arrested for some 2 racketeering conspiracies, a couple of robberies, and some shootings. We got into a few shootouts and stuff out there, just some kids, right? So I ended up in prison, and because I grew up in the streets, I didn't really have any real structure, like societal structure, family structure, any of that. So going into prison was no real big thing, man. That's just the truth. And, when I got up in prison, I knew what time it was. And, I'm a youngster in prison, and I know what rules up in there is you got to be a man, you got to hold your ground. First thing you do in prison, you ask anybody that's been in any prison, what's the first thing you do when you go to prison? You get yourself a knife. That's the very first thing you do. You may not need it today, but at some time during this journey, you're probably going to need it. Either defend yourself and whatever. So, I got a knife and I defend myself. So my journey through the prison system, man, prison is what it is. There was always things going on. All the things going on in society going out there, all the drama, static, racial things, religious things, everything, political stuff, it always comes over into prisons, always. That's how we came into being, Aryan Brotherhood, anyway, by the way, as a white self-defense group, because you got minorities fighting for their rights. Who wants to be a second-class citizen? We would have helped them. I got a history of helping minorities, Indians, blacks, Mexicans, and even in prison systems, helping them back in their place because they're pushing for their rights. One time I grew my hair out. I hate hair. I grew it down to my shoulders to help the natives, and we won so they could grow their hair out. Now I immediately shaved my head. But the thing is we're in prison doing what we're doing. So shit happens. Now, back in the old days, you had the old convict code. Everybody, even though we're different, we backed each other based on the convict code. And there was a real clear line between us and the government, us and the police. So, and you never cross that line. Well, once they started coming in the early 70s with rehabilitation stuff, because that pendulum swings back and forth. Usually takes 20 to 30 years each swing. Get tough on crime, lock them up, throw away the key, kill them all that. And then it goes for 20, 30 years, and they say, well, shit, this ain't working. We got to rehabilitate them. They're coming out worse than they went in. So they go to rehabilitation 20 to 30 years, and they're saying, man, that shit ain't working. We ain't getting the right results. We got to get tough on crime. So it goes back and forth. Well, when it got into the rehabilitation thing in the early 70s, things started breaking up, and people started, going off on their own. Convict code out of survival, and all that started, diminishing, being eroded. So, now there's some chaos and all that, but there's still crews and gangs, depending on the systems you're in. Some are really hardcore penitentiaries, the old concrete and steel jungles, man. That stuff still rules. So, fast forward to when I was at Marion. Marion was the new Alcatraz. When they closed the old Alcatraz out in San Francisco Bay. First, it was like a kid's joint. They'd find all the holes, let the little rabbits try to run out. Then they started bringing in people from all over the United States. It was a dumping ground for the federal prison system. People that are activists. It wasn't really a gang thing at the time. It was activists, racial, social, religious activists, people that were kind of firebrands in the system, organized stuff. They were trying to break that up. They'd throw them there. And then people coming in from state systems that were too much for the state systems to handle. Like when I first got there in the mid-'70s, I was sent there from the state of Minnesota. And, you know, and I grew up, you know, in prison systems, man. And I just got through being set up. They tried to indict me. Well, they did indict me for the murder of an informant wearing a wire inside the prison. But I beat that in pretrial. One of the informants that was fingering me, he, you know, recanted. And then, plus we had an escape thing and a few other things and all that. They just said, finally, it's time to get rid of this dude. Sent me into Marion. And when I get into Marion, that's what that was. It was the new Alcatraz. But it was basically a respectful environment at that time. It was old convicts. They know how to do that time. And listen, it's real simple in prison how to do your time. It's called common courtesy and respect. You respect the next man. You treat people with common courtesy. It's real simple. Like in the California prisons, if I go behind you, I say, excuse me, behind you, or excuse me, sir, behind you. Everyone says that. Blacks come behind me, excuse me, sir, behind you. If cops come behind me, excuse me, sir, behind you. If I go behind a cop, man, excuse me, behind you. The reason it's like that is because people get killed from behind. You know, they come up and cut your throat. So it's common courtesy and respect. Well, once you start breaking down a little bit and you start getting younger kids in, what the government started doing was trying to lock people up and throw them in shoes, indeterminate shoe programs. Once they validate you as a member of a disruptive group, they will put you in a shoe forever. The security housing units called indeterminate shoe programs. Well, that left a vacuum. So all the youngsters start coming up. They're trying to figure out their way and trying to carry it however they can carry it to the best of their ability. And so new MOs are introduced, how they're doing things. And some of it's tore up, and some of it they aren't adhering to the old ways. So you start getting a lot of chaos. Now you start getting a lot of different gang interaction, gang warfare, a lot of racial stuff. It's like it's kind of crazy. You'd think the more that people would win their rights in the country and get stuff, the more they would assimilate and integrate themselves into the social system and the mores of that, you know, how to act this now. But it ain't working that way. The more power they get, the more power they want, and you start seeing more crime, more gang stuff, and all that. So that carries into the prison systems. This leads to warfare. Now, getting to John Gotti, I think he was an E or F block. D block in Marion was the tip block, organized crime block, and all that. I was always in D block. All of us, Aryan Brotherhood, Mexican Mafia, stuff like that, we were always in some DC blacks, but a lot of them were over in E and F blocks. They were kind of keeping us separate and stuff. But a lot of us, like I go back, over 40 years with a lot of the old heads out of DC, the old black kids. These are friends of mine. Man, we're cool. You know, these guys, Tom John's a racist. No, that's all bullshit. Nowadays, all they do is they call you a racist. If you don't adhere to their little narrative or what they want, you're a racist. Well, I wear that as a badge of honor, man. I do what I know to be right. I'm not asking permission. I'm not apologizing. I seek no forgiveness. I do what I know to be right, and I don't care what color your ass is, what God you pray to, or anything. If you're right, if you're cool, you're a good dude and all that, I'm going to treat you right. That's just how it is. So there was a lot of stuff going on at Marion. You're always going to get somebody driving up in there that's a dumbass, that doesn't know how to do time, doesn't know how to interact with crews and all that, and they'll stir something up, and this can function if you don't have people around them. This is why at the top of crews, you need cool heads, you need level heads to straighten stuff up and call a spade and call what it is. If somebody's wrong, even if it's your own, you got to correct it. You got to call it like that. You got to police your own. Don't. Yeah. It's going to turn into something. It's going to get violent. Somebody's going to get hurt. Then people are going to, close ranks within their own crews. It'll turn into a war, and then it starts taking on a life of its own. It's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. So getting to John Gotti. John Gotti came into Marion. they're just trying to get him out the way. He did what he did up there in New York, took that Gambino thing and all that over. And I talked to John about it. I know what happened. They were on, Big Paulie said, nobody gets involved with drugs. Jack, you get involved with drugs, it's too easy to convict you. It's a dirty business. You're stringing people out, all this and that. And it's too easy to book people on racketeering and drug trafficking conspiracies. It's just too easy to hit them. He says, anybody gets involved in that, we're going to whack all your asses. Well, there's too much money in it, so everybody's involved in it. Well, they're unsealing an indictment, and they're all getting indicted, and Paulie's getting indicted too. And they knew it was man, listen, it's a foregone conclusion. Somebody's going to get whacked. And you got to strike while the iron's hot, man. And they knocked Paulie out the box. That's all there is to it, and took it over. Well, so John's doing his thing. They're having their run, doing whatever they're doing, but he's also going to get cracked. At some point, he's going to get convicted, man. You can do what you do with juries and everything else, but at some point, you're going to get convicted. He got convicted. They washed him up, gave him all that time. He came to Marion. They're going to try to salt him way down. He's in the block. He's interacting with people. It's cool. He came to us because now he's in our world. We run those worlds. So he come into our world. We're interacting. He was telling Barry he'd get him a lawyer out of New York because Barry was fighting that killing, that homicide he had out of Atlanta. And we were working with him, stuff like that. And what happened on the tier that day when John got jumped, listen, there was this black kid, a young black kid off the East Coast that was walking back and forth on the tier, the second tier. John's on the second tier, and a guy named Doc's on the second tier, a friend of mine, Big Doc. So this black kid's got to walk in between them. The tier's only like 4 feet wide. Mm-hmm. And you're on the second tier, and there's a railing. And he's polite, excuse me. Finally, he walked through because he's got to walk back and forth to get to his cell. And John said, man, what the fuck you keep walking in between us for? He said, man, I got to go to my cell. It turned into an argument. And that turned into a fist fight. Well, John's fighting now. It's just so happened the kid's bigger than him, younger than him, and he's a pugilist. He can fight a little bit, right? But John's fighting. John, he's knocking out 500 push-ups every day, sit-ups. He's with the program, the prison program. And he's banging with the kid, but he's getting knocked down. He's jumping right back up, banging some more. Well, that turned into a thing, right? So John can't accept that. And he's wanting some kid back. Well, they separated this black kid from everybody. In fact, I was on the tier with that black kid when they moved us all up to the new Alcatraz of the Rockies in ADX in Florence, Colorado. And I was on the tier with them out there on the main line. The population, when I got out of the shoe, because I was back in the shoe again, I got arrested in 92 on some bunk-ass air piracy thing. And then, so I was in the shoe for another 7 years. I got out, and I was on tier. This guy would never come out of a cell. And we're in boxcar cells. So you're in a cell with a barred front on it, and then a boxcar in the front of that, meaning like a front porch, maybe 4 feet out, and it's solid. And it's locked at all times, so you can't get to him. John wanted some action with that dude, but nobody could get to him. So that's what happened with that. Now, John got moved down. After that happened, he went to I unit. Then he went to G unit. They were keeping him locked up in G unit. G unit was like an overflow for ADSA, the Administrative and Disciplinary Segregation Unit, which was I unit at Marion. And he was in G unit. He didn't really like that. He was trying to, in fact, he was trying to get down to the ADX with us later on, but they weren't moving him. And that's when he got the cancer, and then went down to Springfield, Missouri. It went in, had the chemos and all that stuff. It went into remission. He came back to Marion. He was in G unit. I was talking to him too because I was in the control unit there with H units right next to it. And then we got pulled out of there, and then the cancer came back, and he went down to the Springfield, Missouri again. They cut him up and all that, and that's where he died. But now John was part of what inside the prison that we called the IC, or the Inner Circle. It was Aryan Brotherhood, Mexican Mafia. It was Nicky Scarfo out of Philly, and the Atlantic City thing. John Gotti, some Crips out of South Central California, some Blacks out of Chicago. And what we did, it was like a table, and we would interact, and we'd do business, and we'd keep the bullshit down inside the prisons. So, keep the racial shit down, just keep everything down, all the bullshit down. Well, John, because they do what they do in New York, but they run a lot of union stuff. They got access to a lot of legitimate businesses. So what was going on is we were doing business with them to access businesses for glassware and chemicals for methamphetamine manufacturing. And some of our guys that are cooks were dealing with all of that. In fact, one of them, he got out. He was supposed to do this stuff, but he had some other issues in Northern California. He went and kicked the door in and rolled in a crib up there with a pistol in his hand, shot the joint up, killed 2 or 3, shot some off. You know, they tried to give him a death sentence. Now he's doing like 65 to life in California. In fact, he's under indictment for racketeering right now.
Was John Gotti paying for protection?
John Gotti's doing favors. Let me put it that way. You know, because he was on the yard, right? And he was supposed to get a guy to bury a lawyer, and that wouldn't happen right away. And the guy went to him and said, "Man, what's happening to that lawyer?" And there's like a little dispute there. And John felt the guy was leaning on him a little bit. John says, "You know, I can have 2,500 soldiers down here in 24 hours." And the dude looked at him, looked around, he said, "Where are they at?" I looked at him and he knew, hey man, you know, you start an issue, but you ain't gonna make it 24 hours. So John knows John's a businessman, and John grew up in the streets, and John knows what time it is. And John ain't no punk, but he knows where he's at, so he knows how to do business, man. So that's what he was doing. And there was a conspiracy by him to pay money. I'm not gonna say it was 500,000, but he wanted that black dude kid. In fact, that black dude got out, went back to the East Coast and killed like a metro station or something. Subway station guard, took his gun, killed him and all that. And I read reports on that later where the cops out there were saying, "Damn, we wish the Aryan Brotherhood would have killed this dude for Gotti, because he wouldn't have got out here and killed this cop." Right?
What about Sammy the Bull? How was Sammy the Bull able to go so long in prison without anyone doing anything to him?
He's on PC. God, he wasn't in general population, bro.
No, I know, but so Sammy the Bull keeps talking about this guy Cornfed that was with the Aryan Brotherhood. Can you tell me anything about him?
Yeah, Schneider. Yeah, he was AB in California. He was in the shoe for a long time. He was caught up in that pit bull thing, and the pit bull thing where attacked them gals in San Francisco. And
yeah,
the
woman
killed one of them and all that. Yeah, so the Cornfed, Turtle, and some other guys got a racketeering case out of Pelican Bay, the shoe in Pelican Bay. Because listen, just because you're in the shoe, that don't stop nothing, man. And they're doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? Hey, they run those yards. They run them yards.
Allegedly, Cornfed put an Aryan Brotherhood tag on Sammy the Bull. He tattooed his arm with an Odin.
Sammy is Sammy, right? Listen, Sammy was doing Sammy's thing, man. You know, he's part of that Gambino thing. He's with Gotti. He's doing all that, man. That's his business. Well, when it went bad, they had all them damn tapes out of that Ravenite Club and all that shit. Sammy the Bull. So check it out. Sammy the Bull, when he was like at the ADX in Florence, he was in D unit. D unit is called a high security unit. And the way these blocks are built, they're built like an X. Now, if you were to look at the X, you got the two arms up at top, 2 on the bottom. One arm coming in is the hallway going into the block. The arm on the left going up is A range. In the feds, tiers are called ranges. They got 12 cells, and there's 2 of them. There's an upper and lower range. Then B range, the one to the right, the top arm going up, that's B range. There's 12 cells on each tier there, too, at the top and the bottom. Then the arm on the right going back is C range. There's only 8 cells. That's a short range. 8 cells on upper and lower ranges. Okay. D range is considered a high security block. Most of these PC guys in there, like say the Unabombers and guys like that they aren't going to let out anyhow because they think somebody's going to try to kill them. Even if they want to get out, they keep them isolated. And you got guys that are actually checked in there, that are just they can't make it. People are after them. Then you got guys like Tommy was there because he got out of the SAM cells, no human contact cells. So what they did is there was lawsuits from the University of Denver University of Colorado in Denver, the law school, fighting, trying to get him out of solitary confinement. So they moved him into D unit, put him on a short tier with some other people, and but he's never going to get out of there. So Sammy the Bull was over there in D unit on PC because he's, he told on John and did all the stuff he did, right? He had another guy there out of New York named Gas Pipe. He was one of the hitters out of New York and all that with that whole trip. A lot of guys in there that were just in that unit, right, stuck there in that unit. As far as Sammy putting on an Odinist tattoo, first of all, Aryan Brotherhood is not Odinist. That's not to say some of them wouldn't necessarily have that theological belief, but that doesn't define Aryan Brotherhood. Okay, and the AB, I don't know what AB he's talking about. He's, because the AB started in California, then went into Feds. That's the original AB, right? And then they start growing up everywhere, like in Arizona, Georgia, Texas. It just started happening everywhere, right? So I don't know if he was down in Arizona, because remember he got in that little trip with the ecstasy thing down there, slinging ecstasy, and got caught up. So I don't know if people are claiming to be ABs and all that may have did something with. But here's the thing: if you got a guy that rolled over on his cruise and did what Sammy did, no crew that's involved in criminal activities is going to allow him into the crew, because he's already been on the witness stand against everyone. You know what I mean? And so they're just not going to allow him in the crew. I mean, it's inevitable. You're going to end up having to kill him. Don't want to tell him. Right?
Well, so Sammy the Bull says they respected him so much they let him get the AB patch on his arm because they respected him.
Because you got to remember something. Here's the thing.
Cornfed said that. Cornfed's the one that gave him the tattoo.
Yeah, Cornfed rolled over. So here's the Cornfed's going to get killed too. So here's the thing. They're hiding him out too. See, here's the thing. You got to understand something about the Aryan Brotherhood, how it came into being. That's what I was saying. When back in the days with the social strife and everything going on, it came into the prisons. This is back in the 60s. And what happened was these guys started, indiscriminately attacking white men inside prisons. So we had to form a white self-defense group. If they wouldn't have did that, because it had the direct effect of turning potential allies in their struggle into adversaries. So we didn't want numbers. Most crews try to pull in numbers. They wanted a quantity. We never wanted quantity. We want quality. And because we're coming into being on the battlefield, man, we want killers. We want people that are killers, man, because you don't want a peacenik on the battlefield. You're under gunfire from gun towers and gun rails. And, motherfuckers, assassination crews running around the block say, you don't want somebody on a piece, you want somebody that's with business. So those were the type of people we pulled in. So he may say they respected him so much because he's claiming he was a killer and all that, but you're talking about him going into an organization that's an organization of killers. In fact, the federal government called the Aryan Brotherhood the Brotherhood of Blood and also Murder Incorporated, because they are known for a lot of really good friends and good brothers of mine that are basically, they're homicidal mania. I had to stop a lot of killings. And they were mad at me because I stopped them. They love killing, man. Give them the slightest reason to whack that motherfucker, they're going to kill him. I actually saved lives. I was on the commission, me, Barry Mills, and T.D. Bingham, so I had the authority to stop shit, and I had the authority to stop shit and investigate it, because I know how that goes too. We'd be getting wires off the coast all the time. This guy's no good. He's in the hat. He's got to get whacked. I'd say, hold up. I'm over to investigate this shit, because it can be something as simple as they're in a security housing unit. A guy comes in with a bunch of dope, and a dude's in the corner that's been slammed in a little box for 20 years. He doesn't think he's getting a big enough paper of dope, so he's gritting on this dude. He puts him in the hat. He's going to smut him down or whatever, saying he's no good or whatever, and he's got to get hit. And they'll get killed for that shit. I'm not letting that happen. Even Barry said one time, he remarked to somebody else, he said, damn, why does John keep stopping this shit and investigating stuff? Because I'm not going to let anybody kill anybody for bullshit. Sometimes you can't save somebody. They just, whatever they did is just too egregious. You just can't save them, And I used to go through it in my own head and say, what the fuck did he do that for? Why did he turn left instead of right? He knows he's been in the game. He's not somebody that just wandered into this. He comes from the underworld. He knows if he does X, Y, or Z, he's going to get whacked. That's all there is to it. I don't care who you are. You could be the top boss, you know, the big kahuna. Your ass is going to get whacked. And I used to go through it, and I used to think, well, man, it's just like a karmic thing, man. You know, it's just these guys' time to go, right? So this thing about they respected Sammy so much, I guess on his claim to fame that he's a killer. Well, the whole organization is killer. So yeah, so that's not a thing, and they're not going to let a known informant in there unless they can pull him into the corner somewhere. If there's like a $500,000 contract on Sammy, they can pull him in the corner somewhere and hot shot him or hit him with a toxin like some, you know, Ryzen or cyanide or something, or just go in and choke them out. I read the shit where the federal judge says the MO of the Aryan Brotherhood, he says they're stabbers and stranglers. They stab you to death and they strangle you to death with their bare hands. Hey, he cited a case. He says, Quicksilver, we'll call this guy Quicksilver. Quicksilver and his partner, they went, he says, either out of compassion or for expediency's sake, as they went in as surgeons to perform the surgery, they gave this guy general anesthesia. Then he went to explain what it was. They said they rolled in, beat him over the head with lead pipes, knocked him out, then pulled out the knives and performed the surgery, and they stabbed him to death. So I guess the judges got some, you know, a sense of humor, right? But I'm telling you, they are not going to allow known threats into an organization.
Yeah.
Especially when you got the federal government in a country like this today that's going after white men, and it's going to call them all white supremacists, Aryan Brotherhoods, where they are, whether they are or not, or KKKs or whatever. So they're going to be targeting you. So you are not going to allow any known threats or informants and people that have testified on stands in criminal cases. And Sammy brought a lot of people down. You're not going to allow somebody like that in your crew.
Now, can you tell me about Nicky Scarfo, how you first met him and what he was like in your dealings with Nicky Scarfo?
Okay, so Nicky come into Marion. He was in D Block with us. Nicky's just a short little dude, right? He was on the tier with me. I went down seeing him. Hey, Nicky, I'm John. How you doing? I'm Nicky. I said, man, what's up? You know, welcome to our house. And he just kind of laughed, right? And me and him would spin the yards. He told me all about his case and everything, all about his stuff, all about that little kid that hung himself. He really felt bad about that. Little kid really looked up to him and believed in him. And then they started talking all this crazy stuff about Nicky and Nicky's nephew, Leonetti. He said, man, if you don't stop my uncle, he's going to kill more people than Adolf Hitler and, you know, all this shit, right? So it really, this little kid hung himself, man. So that really fucked with Nicky. And then that youngster in his crew that was coming up that he had whacked, he told me, he says, John, listen, he says he had affiliations with different areas inside this crew. And he says, man, he was a threat. He said he was a threat. He had to go. So
Testa. You're talking about Testa.
That's that world. That's the underworld, man. I get it. And you know how it is in the underworld. For you to get up, to move up through the ranks, you got to be you got to be a money maker. You got to be welcomed up through the ranks, or you kill your way up through the ranks.
Testa was a killer. He was a killer, Nicky. He did a lot of murders for him.
Yeah, I know. But sometimes, man, you're going to see things where you start perceiving a threat. You're a killer, and you're putting moves on. You're hitting people for guys. You know, a guy that's at the top. These guys at the top, especially in organized crime crews, they start tripping, thinking, man, maybe seeing things and maybe even misreading things, getting a little paranoid or something, and thinking, man, this dude here is making moves, and he's coming for me. He's coming for my spot. We're always coveting their little spots. Barry Mills used to do that all the time. Barry, you got to remember, ours was a thing where we had a commission. There wasn't no boss. So one of our guys, Slow off the coast, got into Barry's ear because we're interacting with Gotti and Nicky and all them. And these guys are, you know, bosses and godfathers and all that. So he got in his head that he's some kind of a godfather. I told him, listen, don't get this shit fucked up. You're nobody's boss. You're my brother. Don't ever try to give me an order to go kill somebody. That guy needs to get killed. You get your shit, I'll get mine. We'll go kill him together. AB stands for Aryan Brotherhood, not Aryan Brotherhood. And don't get that shit correct. And he didn't like it, but hey, You're not my boss. You know, you are not on top of them at the top of the heap giving orders. You know, the commission does that. So it was a paranoid power and control freak. He's always seeing threats to his idea of his status and power and all that. And nobody was doing it. That's just kind of a natural state at the top of an organized crime crew in the underworld, man. You know, you can get whacked too. People are coveting your spot, coveting your money, coveting your power, covering whatever. And that's the same thing with Nicky, same thing with Gotti, all of them. So it's not surprising to me the way Nicky run it down to me. He was perceiving, rightly or wrongly, perceiving this guy, that youngster, as a threat to him.
Yeah, Salvi.
A good guy that was really loyal to you, really a good dude, and an asset to your organization. But you got annoyed, you got tripping, and you went and had him whacked, man. And that was, you know, that's basically, it's a tragedy, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. So I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Joey Merlino having a podcast now?
Well, listen, you remember how Big Paulie in New York, there, Gambino family was integrating his stuff into like this idea of legitimate business and everything else, right? Making that transition. Okay, podcast. I'm sure, and I have never listened to his podcast, but I'm sure he isn't on the podcast talking about him, his organization, or anything else creating doing criminal acts or murders or anything else, unless it's public knowledge. It's already part of the public records. You know what I'm saying? It's been prosecuted, everything else. You don't want to get on a podcast and say things that are going to get people indicted. You don't want to say things that are going to put people in harm's way. If it's old hat stuff that's well known, maybe that isn't really fully known in the social medias or whatever, but law enforcement has been knowing about it, and that's a done deal. They process it all the way out, did what they had to do, so it's a wrap. Then they can get up and talk about these things, you know, and the public loves a lot of this stuff. They love hearing about, you know, robberies and shootouts, the whole trip, right?
Yeah.
That stuff. So that's my thing on him having a podcast. That's his business, and I'm sure, you know, he's a smart guy and he knows what to say. Think about this. This is a business. It's a marketing thing, how to get your information out. People are paying to get that information. Like anything, any other social media thing. If they want to get on you know, X or Twitter or TikToks or whatever and look up some new singer or rock star or whatever and see what's going on in the whole trip. This is just another genre of information that people are interested in. They'll pay to get on and listen to it and get entertainment. It's business and it's a moneymaker, man. You should not only get into the organizational things, you should get into shit like, you know, the old hook and ladder gangs and all that shit, trying to break out of prison and shit. Listen, man, these are some wild stories. A lot of them were unsuccessful, some were successful, but this shit is just crazy. So, and the bottom line is, hey, only humans, even wild animals, you put them in a cage, they'll chew their leg off trying to get out. Only humans will rationalize this shit out. Somehow it's okay to just lay around and spend your life in a little cage, right? But there's some that are the exceptions. You know, they just burn a little hotter. Their spirit burns a little hotter, right? And they're trying to break it, and that's what it's all about. Because back in the days, you had a duty to break jail, and then if you had any partners in jail, you had a duty to break them out of jail. So nowadays it's different, man. It's just a whole different mindset going. Now they're all just drug addicts, man, and they're caught up in this other stuff. You know what I mean?
Did Nicky Scarfo have any problems in there?
Nicky had problems one time when they brought a bunch of blacks in from Philly, and they came in. They had like a riot or something in one of their prisons up there, and they brought them in. And there was a little issue because there was a few of them in our cell block in D block with us. And then we went to them and told them, listen, man, you know, it's hands off on Nicky. Nicky's a friend of ours. This ain't happening. Whatever you guys had going on in Philadelphia, in the streets and business and rackets and whatever, that's out there. It ain't happening here. And if it happens in here, then there's going to be some problems. So they backed off Nicky. Nicky used to be when we were playing tennis at Marion, he'd be my front court man. Because I'm like 5'8". I'm getting old. I'm shrinking. I may be 5'7.5" now, but Nicky was shorter than me. So I tell Nicky, I said, man, you stand up at the front net there, Nicky. When the ball comes to you, tell him, kill it. Tell me, doctor. He says, I got it, doctor. I'll kill it. I said, and when he kill it, I tell him, good kill, Nicky. And he just grinned. And Nicky was my buddy. I was with him for a couple of years there, and then he got moved on, and then I got moved to the other side of the block because Barry started some shit. That's a kind of a different subject, but he started some stuff. He's trying to whack some brothers, saying they're no good. Takes 2 commissioners in our organization to whack them. I said, where's the evidence? He's saying they're informants. There's no evidence. I went to all the brothers. This is what he's doing. It ain't gonna fly. There's no evidence. You know our laws. If anything happens to a brother and it hasn't been authorized by the commission, 2 commissioners, everybody involved is gonna get whacked. I got moved over to the other side. Then Nicky went to the step down unit C block, then B block, pre-transfer, then moved out to another pen somewhere.
Can you tell me about Barry Mills and what it was like in the organization? You guys were in the top echelon of the AB.
Okay, well, when Barry first came into the feds from California, he caught a bank robbery. Him, a guy named Keto Vargas, and Danny Cavanaugh, called DC. They got a bank robbery. He came into the feds. They were up in McNeil Island for a minute. And then Barry from McNeil Island was going to Atlanta. And I crossed paths with him. I just came up from Atlanta. A guy had picked up a homicide down in Atlanta named Steve Payton. And he burned a guy to death with gasoline in the cell. And he pulled a bunch of us down there on his trial. We were supposed to go to the Fulton County Jail. We had some little plans and schemes for the Fulton County Jail. And they took me and Jive Roberts, Charlie Roberts, a partner of mine out of Houston. They wouldn't take us into the Fulton County Jail. They took us to the federal pen in Atlanta and put us in the AWB building. That used to be the ad sake there. And threw us down there. In fact, I was down there when Big Al, Tommy Genovese, and Bobby Mulholland caught that case on Zambito, the guy that was supposed to be in the witness protection program that told on all the mile brackets and shit down in South Florida. And they walked him up into Atlanta and walked him into a major cell block, and he looked around. He thought, officer, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. The guy said, well, your cell's up there. Go up there, and we'll deal with this shit later. We're busy. He didn't last the night. They got Big Al, Tommy Genovese out of the Genovese crime family in New York, and Bobby Mulholland, a friend of theirs, wrapped all 3 of them up, killing. He didn't last. They cut his throat. He didn't last 24 hours. So anyhow, we were down there, and when we were coming back up from, they used to, before they had Con Air, the air flights, they used to ride us around on buses all the time. So when we came through Terre Haute, Indiana, the federal pen there, the old Terre Haute, it's called I Up, where you'd lay over when you're riding the chain on the bus, man. You'd lay over. Barry was up there. He was going to Atlanta. Ronnie Brashino, Bruiser, the government accuses him of being enemy, Mexican Mafia, all that. He had just picked up a murder. Him, Dog Kell, and Bone. They were fighting a murder beef there on the killing down on the mainland in Hut there. And I was chopping it up with Barry. I told him, listen, a lot of the fellas are back in the control unit there with me right now. Puppets there, Billy McKinney, Coach, Ronnie Perrin, DC, Danny Cavanaugh, Cowboy Conley out of San Diego. And out on the mainland at that time was George Harp. I think he came in at that time too, but he was a little skittish. He hadn't been acting right. He hadn't been what we call polishing the rock, the shamrock, taking care of brand business. And then there was a few guys on the mainline at Marion at that time that were kind of out of California, were kind of jumpers, man, that want to claim that they're part of something. They'll show you a little tattoo or whatever, and claim that they're part of the brand, the Aryan Brotherhood. California system, the bell that rings the loudest, the light that shines the brightest for white men, for white convicts, is the Aryan Brotherhood. Everything underneath that, skinheads, NLRs, wood piles, everything, are the soldiers for the Aryan Brotherhood. Now, when they locked us all up out there for a while, put us in shoes and all that, we still had shooters, torpedoes on them yards. So there was a little crew that popped up, called themselves a FTB, fuck the brand. Like they're going to take something over. They just start getting hit. They got to run off them yards. Then other crews were trying to take shit over, and they started getting hit. Got some, get right, got some good sense. And They got it right. So anyhow, the thing is Barry, I told him these are the guys that are down there right now. So he sent some messages, and I went down there. And at that time, that particular time, I was never an AB1 because my background, I grew up in the streets, man, with street gangs and organized crime. The Cisco mobs, the Italians, and all. I got wired into the Italians. When I was 14, I robbed a bookmaker. I snuck into his house and stole all his shit. The guys that were with me that were scared to go in there, they fucking gave me up. So Cheech, he drives up in his Cadillac, and I got my little 22 pistol. And he said, John, come down here. I went down. I ain't fucking coming down there. He's got another dude with Billy Oletti saying, John, he just wants to, I tell him, I ain't coming down there. I'm going to have to shoot you motherfuckers. Then he says, no, it'd be all right. So I get in the car. Cheech says, I don't want your little buddies around here. They snitched you out. Because I'm still denying everything. He said, John, I like you. So that was my relationship with the mob. He told me, listen, don't do that shit again. He says it was a good thing I didn't know I slept that deep. Because he's about 5 feet tall, about 5 feet wide. And he was in his silk boxers and slingshot. And I didn't know he had a 38, some of those 38 laying next to him on the bed because the lights are on in his bedroom. It's bright. I'm crawling on the floor next to his bed, going through his books. I didn't know there was his books making books. I'm just getting money. I ended up throwing all his fucking bookmaking books away. I burned them. That's what he wanted back. I fucked up all the bookmaking for the cities. He was doing the cities. He was for the Chicago mob and for fucking Vegas. I fucked all his books up. I didn't even know it. But anyhow, he told me, listen, don't ever do this again. And when you come through, you ever get some business? I used to, get trucks, jack trucks, bring them tires. Say, you get any guns, bring us guns. So this is my connection to the Italians. So that's what I grew up with. So I told him, listen, I'm not interested in being in a prison gang. I always take care of my own business, man. I push my own steel and I pull my own triggers, man. I don't need help. And I got my own little cruising at Marion at that time. We were moving a lot of product into Marion. And, my little crew and stuff. And me and Jivo, Charlie, Robert. And I told them, listen, you guys are good guys. You're good white men. And you're good convicts. You're solid. So anytime I can help you, I ain't paying rent or protection to anybody. But you guys, you're good dudes. So, man, I break people off. And I would break everyone off, all races, whites, Mexican, Indians, blacks, a lot of the DC blacks, man, these buddies of mine, they like weed. I'd be breaking them off weed and shit like that. These are friends of mine, man. And dudes out of Chicago, blacks out of Chicago, Gary, Indiana and stuff. I'm looking out for these good dudes, right? And Ronnie Perrin, called Coach, he was saying, and Puppet too, they're saying, John, we're cut from the same cloth to, for us to have good relationships, for us to be friends. And then Ronnie, I told him the only thing that would ever kind of induced me to maybe go that way is if you guys were organized in the streets, because my background growing up in the streets as a kid was organized crime. I got pulled into that as a youngster. That's how I caught my cases. I had a young crew, man. We were doing stick-ups, and I don't know how the fuck he got my name, got up on me. And one night I was going to a party, a homegirls party, some older homegirls. They said, man, there's some people up in here who want to see you. And I went in, and I seen 3 dudes I'd never seen before. One of them was the biggest human being I ever seen in my life. It's like 500 pounds. He made the whole kitchen look tiny. Dick was a weightlifter, bodybuilder back then. So was his driver. And he says, man, I need to talk to you. We sat down in the living room. I told him, man, you the police? He says, no. And he says, John, I know what you're doing. I told him, I ain't doing nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I know what you're doing. I told him, you want a cigarette? He said, no, I don't smoke. I told him, you want a drink? He says, no, I don't drink. I don't do drugs, anything. He says, listen, I run an organization. The stuff you're doing, this is what we're doing. We 10% things. We will give you all the information you need. You take the lick down, we get 10% of the take, or 20% of the take if you use our resources. Drivers, weapons, jumpsuits, radio suits. You gotta remember, back in them days, you didn't have all this computerized stuff. You had to get specific crystals for police radios, pick up their frequency. And these things were restricted. We used to get them from cops. The cops would sell us police radios, the little lead saps that they carry. Mace, I had mace before the street cops had mace. In this city, I had mace myself. And we're buying it out of trunks of police cars from police. They're selling it to us. So this was my background coming up in this stuff. So, and that's when Coach says, man, that's where we're going. We're organizing the streets. That's why today, if you talk to federal law enforcement, like the ATF on that racketeering case out in Santa Ana, they says, listen, The Aryan Brotherhood is not a racist organization. They came into being in the racial wars in California, but they were compelled to do that. They were compelled to defend themselves and get involved in it. But that's really not their style. They're organized crime. And listen, it's real simple. Most of the dudes that got up in the organization back in the days when it was first starting are just guys, you know, in the life, in the streets, man, in the rackets, in the red light districts. They're not involved in, you know, necessarily organized crime or anything like that. They come into prison, but a lot of them use dope, they shoot dope, they sell dope, they do all that. So once you start organizing out of necessity, because you're on a battlefield now you got more mouths to feed. So you got to bring in bigger loads of dope. Now you got to sell the shit and make your nuts so you can re-up and do all this stuff. So it turns in, just by the very nature of the beast, it turns into organized crime, man. So that's the thing with that. So that's what I told me. So well, that's where they're going, and that's how I ended up getting into that. You know, and the time I'm doing now is in connection with gambling operations in Leavenworth. Pete Early said in his book I did a public execution. That ain't true. I got in a knife fight with this guy. A guy out of California was talking about killing me, and a partner of mine, a Japanese dude, about gambling things. I told him, you got to get out of the gambling games till you pay your debt. He only owed like $1,200, $1,500. But these are honorable gambling games. These are high-stake games. I've seen 30, 40,000 cash on the tables, and that ain't even the big money. The big money's bank account to bank account in the streets. It's cartel guys, organized crime guys, and all that. We're the house. We provide the protection, the liquor, the food, everything else. And, you know, now you're fucking up the game. So he didn't like that. He tried to move on. Him and another guy tried to move on me and this Japanese partner of mine. Didn't turn out well for him. And I ended up getting in a knife fight with this guy and stabbing him to death. And my jury was out 3 days and twice tried to find me not guilty by reason of self-defense. The judge gave him a bad supplemental and jury instruction saying basically I can't pre-arm for self-defense. And there was a lot of drama going on at that time because they had the dead cops at Marion, and they had the dead cop in that spot in Wisconsin. Them kids killed that cop. We got all this drama going on, and that's where Baby Huey, when he rolled over at that time, and he lied. Because 5 years later, cops came and said, okay, we understand this is bullshit now. But he told them there was a conspiracy by the Aryan Brotherhood to kill federal officials, and they believed it because they already had 2 dead at Marion in the control unit, 2 more stabbed up real bad, they crippled them, and then a few months later, them kids in FCI in Wisconsin, they whacked another one. Because they said, how do we get in that organization? And a dude set him up, a dude named Red. He says, you got to kill a cop. They said, bet. One dude got a knife, ran in, started hitting the cop. He couldn't get it done. The cop was fighting. The other guy grabbed the fire extinguisher, went in, and they beat and stabbed the cop to death. So they believed this shit. But there's a whole story on that shit, too, because they were planning to lock down Marion in the late 70s. And they didn't lock it down until 1983. That's why they threw me out of the federal courtroom in the front of the Marion prison during the Brashino versus Carlson case, the lawsuit we filed to get to lift the joint back up. Because I was trying to get out the truth that they had planned the lockdown of Marion at least 5 years before. We got it under the Freedom of Information Act, and they were shutting it down. They're trying to make like Tommy and Player killing cops, put just notches in their gun butts. But that's not true. And they were planning on locking down. They brought in a new warden named Harold Miller. He's an old Alcatraz guard, my homeboy Clyde Johnson, and a crew snatched him out there on the rock back in the days, tied him up, put a gag on him, threw him in the bush, and then they hit the water trying to get away. Well, they brought him in 1980 as a new warden at Marion. And later on, during the United States House congressional meetings, the House Judiciary meetings on the investigation of Marion, their own cops testified. They said everything this warden did seemed designed to destabilize the inmate population and make shit happen. They had a few killings, stabbing, some cops got stabbed, mini riots and all that. And I was right there in the control unit with Tommy. Me and him was smoking weed. We're plotting and scheming. I'm telling him, I'm gonna get you out of jail. Don't trip. I got to go to Leavenworth for a minute. And here comes the unit manager, Howland, walking down the tier. And Tommy pulls him up. He said, if you don't get Klutz off my back, he said, I'm going to whack him. Now listen, he said, I'm going to book him. Well, Tommy's got 2 bodies in the control unit already. He came down to the control unit from Leavenworth where he had a body. bumping his gums. You know, he'll put some work in. So they didn't move funds. And normally you only work 90 days, a quarter in any spot. You can work a second spot, a quarter, 6 months, then they move you on into BOP. That's how it is. Plus, had been down the control unit for years and years and years. And when they knew there was a threat to them, they never moved them, man. I'm telling you. That's how that went down. I was trying to get that out from the witness stand, and finally the judge told me, Mr. Greschner, you can't be shouting that out from the witness stand. I mean, you can only respond to questions posed to you by counsel, like our counsel or the U.S. attorney or whatever. And I said, yeah, I understand. Because I knew I was out of line, but I'm trying to get the truth out. And they looked at me like, you understand, I'll come down off this bench and fuck you up. I looked at him. I told him, check this out, you little punk. I'll fuck you in your ass, you little bitch. And the marshals get him out of here, and they drag me out of here. And that's when our lawyer, Nancy Organ, said, come around and said, what the fuck do you think this is? The Chicago 7 trial or something? I told him, no, man, this is what we got to get this information out. But that's what really was going on at that time. So, you know, so I'm on trial, and they're flying me around in a helicopter. Because Baby Huey told them little Matt had give all the floor plans of the federal court buildings to the fellas in the streets, and they're going to come and break us out. My judge was holding newspaper fucking meetings during my trial out on the street corner. Tell them, oh yeah, we got word the White Aryan Brotherhood's going to bust these guys out during trial, and we got all this security because some of Greschner's witnesses, that they're all Aryan Brotherhood, Mexican Mafia. They got as many as 25 convictions, murders, drug trafficking, blah, blah, blah. So they got snipers everywhere, bomb dogs everywhere, and that wasn't even good enough. When they were driving me on the ground, I got a helicopter over the van, another helicopter a half mile out, and then a fixed wing plane flying orbits. I got 3 cars in front, 3 cars in back. They all got machine guns. And that wasn't good enough. Finally, they went to Fort Riley, Kansas, got the fucking Army helicopter, landed on the front lawn of Leavenworth. They had a deuce-and-a-half Army truck with some troops there. They would chain me up, take me out to the Army helicopter, padlock my leg irons to it, bolt at the floor, and I'd have troops on each side of me, and then U.S. Marshals, and they'd fly me like that to Topeka, Kansas airport. And when the trial was over, they brought in an Army transport, chained me up. I got marshals and military, and I got a Mossberg shotgun in my back and flew back into Marion. My SWAT team's waiting for me there and took me back into Marion. But that was the direct result of Baby Huey telling them full of shit that we was going to whack federal officials and that they had the floor plans to break us all out. That was all bullshit. And 5 years later, they came back and said, well, we understand now. It's bullshit.
Wow, that's crazy.
Baby, he would use that shit to get to Chicago, and him and Bernard Welch, what they do, they saw their way out and escaped and went unobtained from the MCC in Chicago, plot on their part. You know what I'm saying? My name's John Greschner, and I'm down here in Colorado Department of Corrections, and I'm doing a interview with Staxx, man, and he's got a great channel. This is good stuff. We're good things. We're getting information out on what it really is, what's really going on. This is why I was telling Larry, listen, our thing is prison litigation and redemption program, because I teach meditation. I heal people up in here, deep meditation, Buddhist stuff, transcendental stuff. We're trying to get people ready for the streets. So it's not just gangland shit. We're doing a bunch of other stuff up in here too.
So if you guys like this content, hit the like button. I got another one on the way. I got a bonus one for you guys. If you guys want, if you put a 1 in the chat and you want to see it now, put a 1 in the chat. If not, I'll put it up another time. But if you want to see the bonus one, put a 1 in the chat right now. If you don't put a 1 in the chat, I'll play it another time. All right. Let's see some 1s. So, all right, I'm going to play the next one. Enjoy. And then there's one more after this. This episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx. And today, John Greschner calling.
My name is John Greschner. I'm in Colorado Department of Corrections. In the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility in Ordway, Colorado. My address is 12750 Highway 96 at Lane 13, Ordway, Ordway, Colorado, 81034. I'm a federal prisoner doing 2 life sentences for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. I'm in the state prison system because I filed a bunch of lawsuits in the feds. They kicked me out, and I ended up over here. I've been a member of the Aryan Brotherhood for decades. I'm National Commission, me, Barry Mills, T.D. Bingham, and I'm doing this program, an introduction thing, kind of a background information thing on me. But I want to go into clarifying misinformation in culture and books and all that have been coming out about the Aryan Brotherhood, about me and about a bunch of other guys. Government misconduct, illegal intelligence unit at the Supermaxes over in the ABX, and a lot of other stuff that was going on. There's a lot of stories about gangland and all that. We can talk about all of that, but it's very important to get out what's actually going on in these prisons, the government that's behind it, and resulting in prisoners' deaths, race wars, gang wars, all that. That's what I was arrested in October 1968. I've been down ever since. I've been in prison for the last 56 years.
Wow.
Got 38 of it in solitary confinement. The time I'm doing right now is what I picked up in jail. It was over gambling games, turned into a dispute. Guy was, him and some friends were talking about killing me and another guy. They tried to ambush us. It turned into a knife fight in the Center Hall at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary. I killed him in a knife fight. In a book that recently came out, they said I did a public execution because he owed us $1,000, and I did a public execution in front of government officials. That's not true. An informant at a racketeering, a federal racketeering case we had in Santa Ana, California, said I killed him because he told on people for robbing banks. That's not true. When I was originally indicted, the U.S. attorney jumped up in the courtroom, said, "Your Honor, this man's a member of the Aryan Brotherhood. He's a contract killer, and this is a contract killing to keep the victim from going back out to California and testifying for the people." That's not true either. The truth of the matter is this dude owed us $1,200, $1,500. I borrowed him from the games till he paid his debts. He didn't like it. He got a knife. Him and a partner of his moved on me and a friend of mine, a Japanese dude. My jury was out 3 days, tried to find me not guilty of self-defense twice, but we had a bunch of political baggage going on at the time because 3 guards in the federal prison system had been killed, 2 at Marion and 1 in Oxford, and an informant who was lying put me in the middle of it. He said there's a conspiracy by the Aryan Brotherhood to kill federal officials. They believed it. 5 years later, they finally came back around, so we realized that was a mistake on our part, but they believed it at the time. And so, you know, that's what led to my convictions. I should have beat the case, but, you know, that's how it is sometimes. So I've done 28 years in the federal prison system in Marion, Illinois, when it was the new Alcatraz. I did 1 year in Leavenworth when I picked up that case. And I did 8 years. I opened up Supermax in Florence, ADX, Colorado, the only acknowledged black site on American soil. I've done time in the California Department of Corrections from Pelican Bay in the north and the Shoes up there all the way down to Ironwood, down to South Quentin, Folsom, Corcoran, High Desert, all them places. So, you know, I kind of been around the country, man, and I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of the truth on what's really going on. So that's what I'm doing this for. And now at this late stage of the game, I teach meditation, deep meditation, self-healing, Siddha yoga meditation, Buddhism meditation. I've been doing that all around the country, and it's helping a lot of people. So that's what we're doing. Me and Barry, I go back to the mid-'70s, 1970s with Barry Mills. Me and him were on the National Commission together. He, myself, and T.D. Bingham. Me and Barry was cool. Barry was a good brother, and then he kind of got stuck in the feds, and it, you know, and then another brother named Slow kind of got in his head because we were doing a lot of business with the Italians, with John Gotti and Nicky Scarfo, and Slow put it in Barry's head that, you know, he should kind of fancy himself as a godfather or a boss. But our organization didn't run that way. We had a 3-man commission, and we had some guys under us. But basically, we didn't have any bosses, man. The commission made all the rules, and Barry had some beefs with some brothers. He was trying to put some informant jackets on them. And it takes two commissioners to green light a brother. We got no hands policies. You can't even raise your hands to a brother. Even another brother can't do it. If you do, you're going to get whacked for that. Nobody else can put their hands on a brother. For anything to happen to a brother, two commissioners have to green light it, have to okay it. So Barry pulled me in because he was at Leavenworth. He was the third commissioner. And he's telling me like 4 or 5 guys are informed. I said, well, where's the evidence? There is no evidence. So I said, listen, I'm not rubber stamping that. You're going to have to get with TD, and he's not going to do it either. And I went and told all the other fellas that were there in D unit with us at Marion. I said, listen, this is what he's doing. There's a common denominator that runs through all that. He's been having problems with these guys over the oldies but the goodies. Drugs, money, and politics. And now he's trying to, put informant jackets on. But listen, man, there's no evidence of that. Call it what it is. Don't start smutting people down. So he didn't really like it, and I told all the fellas, you know our laws, if anybody gets involved in that, anything happens to a brother, everybody involved is going to get whacked. That's just how it is. Those are our laws. That shit's carved in stone on the face of the mountain. There's no gray areas. Well, Barry didn't like it, and so I had to go to him and tell him, listen, man, don't you ever try to give me an order to go kill somebody. If somebody needs to get killed over there, you get your knife, I'll get mine. We'll go kill them together. You're my brother, not my boss. AB stands for Aryan Brotherhood, not Aryan Brotherhood. And he didn't seem to appreciate that, but, those are the laws, man. So I get moved over to the other side of the block. I'm over there with the fellows over there. A few months later, I get wrapped up on a conspiracy, vicious rumors, conspiracy to hijack aircraft and escape from Marion, so I'm going away for a while. In the meantime, a guy came in from Boston named Kevin Rhodes. I didn't trust him. I told Barry, do not trust this guy. In retrospect, I believe he was an FBI plan. He turned out 7 years later he was missing in action. He rolled over, was the first guy in that illegal intelligence unit at the ADX in Florence, Colorado, where they're fabricating racketeering cases on us, on other prisoners, on U.S. citizens, and on foreign nationals. All this came out later, man. When a guy rolled out of that unit, Danny Weeks, I encouraged him to write the newspapers about it. He did, and westwardnews.com called The Broken Code, the year 2000. And 5 years later, there was another one called Bringing Down the Brotherhood. Danny was claiming to be a brother, a member in the Aryan Brotherhood, a shot caller. He never was. He's a bullshit artist. But at least it gives you some insight into what was going on in this unit. The thefts of national security documents and all that. So I know all the facts and all. I had to go through Jackie Reed on BET News to go up to the White House, Condoleezza Rice, to get the national security documents back to the agencies. There's a big thing they're trying to fabricate a case on the Nation of Islam. Farrakhan, I warned Jackie Reed. She got with Farrakhan, warned him. There's all kinds of stuff that we need to go into in other sessions here. And this is all independently verifiable. So anyhow, Barry didn't like it. He started talking shit about me when I'm away in the hole. Kevin Rhodes told the cops that got us put on separation. For the next 7 years, I'm down in the shoes, and I'm hearing from cops what are me and Bill's beefing about. I tell him I ain't got no beef with nobody. Finally, I told the unit manager in the shoe down there in the ADX, I told him, listen, man, hypothetically speaking, you got that, right? Hypothetically speaking. He says, okay. I says, if me and him got a beef, if he's got some hard feelings about something with me, he'll get over it. He said, he'll get over it. I says, that's right. He said, okay, John. So I got out to the main line in 99. We were all in C unit for a minute, and we had to get the encryption systems together and all to communicate between the blocks because they're building these A ranges to put all the tips on to lock us down. We're on the main line, but we're in these tips. So because we had a war going with the DC blacks because they just decided, well, let's just jump on all the whites, and they jumped on a couple of us at Marion, and people that kicked the war off. A lot of people got killed over that. The federal government was involved in putting us up in Lewisburg. When the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, when the investigation went down in the United States Congress, House Judiciary Committee, Kathleen Hawks Sawyer testified in front of the Congress Judiciary Committee, says, listen, Lewisburg is off limits to any active Aryan Brotherhood or Mexican Mafia, who are our allies. So what happened? Right when these guys did this, they went to Marion, went to Big Al, Tweak, JC, Jason, and Wayne Bridgewater said, hey, you guys want to get out of Marion and not go through the step-down program? They said, hell yeah. They said, we're going to send you to Lewisburg. They says, cool. They already knew, because one of the guys that was talking all this shit, talking about, I got 300 comrades out in Lewisburg. This is a DC black named T. He said, we'll just surround all them crackers and smoke all of them. My name is John Greschner. I'm in Colorado Department of Corrections in the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility in Ordway, Colorado. My address is 12750 Highway 96 at Lane 13, Ordway, Ordway, Colorado, 81034. I'm a federal prisoner doing 2 life sentences for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. I'm in the state prison system because I filed a bunch of lawsuits in the feds. They kicked me out, and I ended up over here. I've been a member of the Aryan Brotherhood for decades. I'm National Commission, me, Barry Mills, T.D. Bingham. And I'm doing this program, an introduction thing, kind of a background information thing on me. But I want to go into clarifying misinformation in culture and books and all that have been coming out about the Aryan Brotherhood, about me and about a bunch of other guys. Government misconduct, illegal intelligence unit that Supermaxes over in the ABX, and a lot of other stuff that was going on. There's a lot of stories about gangland and all that. We can talk about all of that, but it's very important to get out what's actually going on in these prisons, the government that's behind it, and resulting in prisoners' deaths, race wars, gang wars, all that. That's what I was arrested in October 1968. I've been down ever since. I've been in prison for the last 56 years.
Wow.
Got 38 of it in solitary confinement. The time I'm doing right now is what I picked up in jail. It was over gambling games, turned into a dispute. Guy was, him and some friends were talking about killing me and another guy. They tried to ambush us. It turned into a knife fight in the Center Hall at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary. I killed him in a knife fight. In a book that recently came out, they said I did a public execution because he owed us $1,000, and I did a public execution in front of government officials. That's not true. An informant at a racketeering, a federal racketeering case we had in Santa Ana, California, said I killed him because he told on people for robbing banks. That's not true. When I was originally indicted, the U.S. attorney jumped up in the courtroom, said, Your Honor, this man's a member of the Aryan Brotherhood. He's a contract killer, and this is a contract killing to keep the victim from going back out to California and testifying for the people. That's not true either. The truth of the matter is this dude owed us $1,200, $1,500. I borrowed him from the games till he paid his debts. He didn't like it. He got a knife. Him and a partner of his moved on me and a friend of mine, a Japanese dude. My jury was out 3 days, tried to find me not guilty of self-defense twice. But we had a bunch of political baggage going on at the time because 3 guards in the federal prison system had been killed, 2 at Marion and 1 in Oxford, and an informant who was lying put me in the middle of it. He said there's a conspiracy by the Aryan Brotherhood to kill federal officials. They believed it. 5 years later, they finally came back around, so we realized that was a mistake on our part, but they believed it at the time. And so, you know, that's what led to my convictions. I should have beat the case, but you know, that's how it is sometimes. So I've done 28 years in the federal prison system in Marion, Illinois, when it was the new Alcatraz. I did 1 year in Leavenworth when I picked up that case, and I did 8 years. I opened up Supermax in Florence, ADX, Colorado, the only acknowledged black site on American soil. I've done time in the California Department of Corrections from Pelican Bay in the north and the Shoes up there all the way down to Ironwood down the south, Quentin, Folsom, Corcoran, High Desert, all them places. So, you know, I kind of been around the country, man, and I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of the truth on what's really going on. So that's what I'm doing this for. And now at this late stage of the game, I teach meditation, deep meditation, self-healing, Siddha yoga meditation, Buddhism meditation. I've been doing that all around the country, and it's helping a lot of people. So that's what we're doing. Me and Barry, I go back to the mid-'70s, 1970s with Barry Mills. Me and him were on the National Commission together. He, myself, and T.D. Bingham. Me and Barry was cool. Barry was a good brother, and then he kind of got stuck in the feds, and it, you know, and then another brother named Slow kind of got it in his head because we were doing a lot of business with the Italians, with John Gotti and Nicky Scarfo. And Slow put it in Barry's head that, you know, he should kind of fancy himself as a godfather or a boss. But our organization didn't run that way. We had a three-man commission, and we had some guys under us. But basically, we didn't have any bosses, man. The commission made all the rules. And Barry had some beefs with some brothers. He was trying to put some informant jackets on them. And it takes two commissioners to green light a brother. We got no hands policies. You can't even raise your hands to a brother. Even another brother can't do it. If you do, you're going to get whacked for that. Nobody else can put their hands on a brother. For anything to happen to a brother, two commissioners have to green light it, have to okay it. So Barry pulled me in because TD was at Leavenworth. He was the third commissioner. And he's telling me like 4 or 5 guys are informed. I said, well, where's the evidence? There is no evidence. So I said, listen, I'm not rubber stamping that. You're going to have to get with TD, and he's not going to do it either. And I went and told all the other fellas that were there in D unit with us at Marion. I said, listen, this is what he's doing. There's a common denominator that runs through all that. He's been having problems with these guys over the oldies but the goodies. Drugs, money, and politics. And now he's trying to, you know, put informant jackets on. But listen, man, there's no evidence of that. Call it what it is. Don't start smutting people down. So he didn't really like it, and I told all the fellas, you know our laws, if anybody gets involved in that, anything happens to a brother, everybody involved is going to get whacked. That's just how it is. Those are our laws. That shit's carved in stone on the face of the mountain. There's no gray areas. Well, Barry didn't like it, and so I had to go to him and tell him, listen, man, you know, don't you ever try to give me an order to go kill somebody. If somebody needs to get killed over there, you get your knife, I'll get mine, we'll go kill them together. You're my brother, not my boss. AB stands for Aryan Brotherhood, not Aryan Brotherhood. And he didn't seem to appreciate that, but, you know, those are the laws, man. So I get moved over to the other side of the block. I'm over there with the fellows over there. A few months later, I get wrapped up on a conspiracy, vicious rumors, conspiracy to hijack aircraft and escape from Marion, so I'm going away for a while. In the meantime, a guy came in from Boston named Kevin Rhodes. I didn't trust him. I told Barry, do not trust this guy. In retrospect, I believe he was an FBI plan. He turned out 7 years later he was missing in action. He rolled over, was the first guy in that illegal intelligence unit at the ADX in Florence, Colorado, where they're fabricating racketeering cases on us, on other prisoners, on U.S. citizens, and on foreign nationals. All this came out later, man. When a guy rolled out of that unit, Danny Weeks, I encouraged him to write the newspapers about it. He did, and westwardnews.com called The Broken Code, the year 2000. And 5 years later, there was another one called Bringing Down the Brotherhood. Danny was claiming to be a brother, an Aryan, you know, a member in the Aryan Brotherhood, a shot caller. He never was. He's a bullshit artist. But at least it gives you some insight into what was going on in this unit. The thefts of national security documents and all that. So I know all the facts and all. I had to go through Jackie Reed on BET News to go up to the White House, Condoleezza Rice, to get the national security documents back to the agencies. There's a big thing they're trying to fabricate a case on the Nation of Islam. Farrakhan, I warned Jackie Reed. She got with Farrakhan, warned him. There's all kinds of stuff that we need to go into in other sessions here. And this is all independently verifiable. So anyhow, Barry didn't like it. He started talking shit about me when I'm away in the hole. Kevin Rhodes told the cops that got us put on separation. For the next 7 years, I'm down in the shoes, and I'm hearing from cops, what are me and Bill's beefing about? I tell him, I ain't got no beef with nobody. Finally, I told the unit manager in the shoe down there in the ADX, I told him, listen, man, hypothetically speaking, you got that, right? Hypothetically speaking, he says, okay. I says, if me and him got a beef, if he's got some hard feelings about something with me, he'll get over it. He said, he'll get over it. I said, that's right. He said, okay, John. So I got out to the main line in 99. We were all in C unit for a minute, and we had to get the encryption systems together and all to communicate between the blocks because they're building these A ranges to put all the tips on to lock us down. We're on the main line, but we're in these tips. So because we had a war going with the DC Blacks because they just decided, well, let's just jump on all the whites, and they jumped on a couple of us at Marion, and people that kicked the war off. A lot of people got killed over that. The federal government was involved in putting us up in Lewisburg when the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, when the investigation went down in the United States Congress, House Judiciary Committee, Kathleen Hawk Sawyer testified in front of the Congress Judiciary Committee, says, listen, Lewisburg is off limits to any active Aryan Brotherhood or Mexican Mafia, who are our allies. So what happened? Right when these guys did this, they went to Marion, went to Big Al, Tweak, JC, Jason, and Wayne Bridgewater, said, hey, you guys want to get out of Marion and not go through the step-down program? They said, hell yeah. They said, we're going to send you to Lewisburg. They says, cool. They already knew, because one of the guys that was talking all this shit, talking about, I got 300 comrades up in Lewisburg. This is a DC black named Pete. He said, we'll just surround all them crackers and smoke all of them.